All right, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how a professor, a PhD in engineering, told me no way it was going to happen. They said no possible way, and they were absolutely wrong. First, let me set the scene. I was about 22 years old. I had gone to college for physics. Why? Long story. Well, okay, it's not that long. So I wanted to play college soccer. So I played college soccer for a couple years, and there was no engineering program at the school that I went to. So what I did is I majored in physics because that's what they told me to do. Okay, so I got a 4-year degree in physics. I knew I wanted to get a master's in engineering. I went to college, to graduate school, got accepted to a couple different places, ended up following my wife to St. Petersburg, Florida. And here's what happened. I went to University of South Florida graduate school, got accepted into there. Like a bunch of people today, I did not want to have school loans. I did not want to have a bunch of debt going into graduate school. So I started asking around to see if I could get any funding for graduate school. And if you've ever been to graduate school or if you've ever looked into graduate school, you know this is a common thing. So I went to the graduate advisor for engineering at the time. I won't say his name. And I said, hey, there's a couple scholarship and funding opportunities. What do you think about this one? And he looked at me and said, you shouldn't even bother applying to that. You're never going to get it. Never going to get it. You don't even bother. This is a waste of time. And at the time I was a little dejected. I was a little bit sad because I thought, oh man, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So I had already reached out to a person in that program, a person who was running that grant, that fellowship at the time. And so they invited me in for a meeting. And I said, oh, well, that's kind of nice. I don't know if I should even go because, hey, I've been told there's no way I'm going to get this, but I decided to go anyway. End up having a great conversation with this instructor, this professor, and we hit it off. We're doing well. We don't necessarily have a lot of research background similarities, but we get along. And she's been to similar places, traveled to similar locations as I have, and we ended up getting along pretty well. The fellowship was a pretty big deal because it paid for your entire educational experience, plus it provided a living stipend, which was not a lot, but it was enough to live off of and not go into debt. And I was pretty good with numbers, and I did not want to go into debt. Now, obviously, from the title of this video, you probably figured out, and from the intro, yeah, I actually did end up getting the fellowship. And so, what did I learn from this experience? Well, number one, I learned that PhD in the end of your name does not equal trust. Okay? It doesn't mean that you should trust this person just because they have a title or some sort of respectable degree. It doesn't mean degrees are worthless or that they don't count for anything. It just means that that's a person. They make mistakes. They don't know everything. And the biggest problem with that person who was giving me advice was they were saying something they really didn't know. They really didn't know enough about that circumstance, my circumstances, to give me that advice. And so they overstepped. They were overconfident and they lacked humility. The second thing I learned is do not ever be afraid to take risks. When it's a high risk, high reward opportunity and there's a low risk of failure. In this case, I apply to a fellowship, I do some work, I lose out on a couple hours of filling out applications, but at the end of the day, I was a graduate student, I had a lot of time anyways, so this wasn't a big loss. Who cares if I get rejected? Now, if I get it, this is a high reward. I can save thousands of dollars over the course of my graduate school years. So anytime you have an opportunity to take, might be a high risk, high reward with a low cost of failure, right? So if the thing that when you fail, it doesn't cost you much, that's not so bad, right? So don't be afraid to take those things. Now, if there's a high risk and a high cost, that's something you need to weigh. But anytime you have an opportunity to take a chance where there's a low cost of failure, this is an opportunity that you can use. And so remember, it's not really failure if you can use that to grow, learn, gain experience. The way we look at things and perceive things, it matters, and it affects the way we're going to take risks, the way we're going to try new things. And most of us, especially when we get older, we tend not to try new things. So we have to be comfortable with taking risks, and we have to be comfortable with failing. And if you can use that opportunity to grow and expand and to learn new things, you're not failing, you're learning, okay? And the third thing I learned is, what might appear from a human perspective as foolishness is not necessarily foolish. And, I happen to believe in God. I believe that God can work things out and orchestrate things in our lives. And so to remember that, not everything's dependent on what people or humans say or perceive, but that God can work things out even when they are unlikely to happen. So what's the point of this video? The point of this video is just to share some life experience that I've learned. Don't be afraid to take risks. One of the best things that graduate school taught me, or the best things that getting a PhD has taught me, is how to fail. May not be a popular thing that people like to do, but if you learn how to fail well, you learn how to take risks and how to go outside of what you're comfortable with, which is what getting a PhD was for me, because I did not want to get a PhD. I wanted to get a master's degree. I wanted to go work. But I had an opportunity to do something that put me outside of what I was comfortable with and taught me how to fail and taught me how to take risks. And that's one of the most valuable things getting a PhD has taught me. So there's a lot of benefits to doing things outside of what you're comfortable with. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from the video. Feel free, leave a comment, check out some of our other stuff, and hope you enjoy our channel.